establish an infrastructure and a vision that would be clear for many people to come to it. And we feel the work needs to be done by many hands of varied skills, talents, and abilities. So we have established 7 departments, and those departments are unique in their vision. They all work under an umbrella structure, which is Vessels International as a parent organization, but all of the departments do work on an overlapping basis. They are interconnected. So that provides the holistic approach of our umbrella vision. When they overlap, that's where we bring in the needs to surround the vessel as necessary, so that we aren't just looking at one problem from one vantage point, but we try to get many perspectives through these departments. The departments are forming at this point. We have a couple of directors, but we have not found directors for all of them. One of the departments we're very interested in finding a director for is the Agro-Vessels Department, and it involves agroforestry. The vision seeks to promote alternative energy sources on the ground, recycling and waste management, as well as agricultural issues of community gardening and livestock procurement.
So with the agri-vessels, what's already out there that you see Vessels International will be able to work with?
Well, at this point, we are assisting 2 orphanages in a community garden. We're starting small, as I said. We are a young organization, and we recognize that we need to establish the pilot programs and then use those templates in other nations. So in Uganda and in India, we have established a community garden, and it's in an orphanage facility. So the children are learning useful skills they'll use later, once after they leave the orphanage after they're already gone and need to make a living. They know how to survive with the use of community gardening, but also thrive in the sense that if they are able to just get a small amount of land, they can make a living. So that brings me to the point of microvessels, which is also one area that we're working on in a pilot program for microloans and microfinance, and that being what you mentioned, seeds. And then we, as those have been planted in me over the years, we hope to plant seed loans into the lives of women who have the skills, the intelligence, the creativity, the ability. They only lack the resources to see those come to fruition. And so planting that seed of maybe $20, $30 can transform an entire life for the long term, because once repaid, that loan goes into a recycling fund, and the community decides who will receive the next loan. Vessels International does not require that to be repaid into the organization. We require it needs to be repaid into the community so that it does continue to pay forward, as you mentioned, and remain a part of the existing economy there, and also help someone else out. And that kind of gives a little sense of community ownership, and also empowers the community to support that individual in repaying their loan so that another person can receive a loan.
The past 2 years, the people have been talking about the power of the microloans, and especially with the economic crisis.
Yes.
People have said that in Africa, the microloans have paid a higher interest rate than the U.S. has experienced in our own economy. And people have seriously looked at seeing if that could be brought into the bigger economy. So it must be nice to have somewhat of an established practice of microloans traveling or in the world.
Yes. The book Banker to the Poor was very integral, and it influenced us greatly. Muhammad Yunus, of course, won the Nobel Prize for the book, and we recommend it on our site. We also recommend several other texts. They're in our archived scrolls section. But microloans, we are looking at several models right now and developing the sustainability model for our microfinance loans. And we have had great insight from individuals in Colombia and are looking for more to come to the table and offer their advice. In addition, we have had a fair trade model beginning to develop, and a retailer here in Columbia, Mustard Seed Fair Trade, has been very important to that model, offering assistance and support in developing it, because we feel once the individual receives a loan, if they are an artisan or an artist, and they do want to sell their goods, it needs to be done through a fair trade approach, at least in theory and according to the principles of fair trade. So offering that as sort of the bolstering concept with the microloans, I think is an important advance, and we're looking to build this department over the course of the coming year. And we do have a director. She's in St. Louis, Missouri. Her name is Katie Warzel. She is an LCSW, MSW, and very extraordinary woman, as all of the women of Vessels are, and the men as well. So we look to her for the development of that department.
You referenced the archived scrolls on the website, and I should mention that the website is vesselsinternational.com.
Yes, it is.
And, but the archived scrolls, it reminds me of ancient texts being stored in clay containers.
I'm so glad that came to mind. That's exactly what we intended. That's great. Yeah, that's the hope, that these will be integrated into the vessel as they're being read and utilized in service. So we are continually adding to that list, but we have a couple up there. So have a look and get your reading list going for the summer if you'd like, and I'm sure some of them will be life-changing.
Now, Vessels International is growing as an organization, and is still in the infancy, really.
It is, absolutely.
And so this is actually an opportunity to take many different paths. Decisions that are made now are going to affect the structure and what this organization realizes in the next few years. What kind of advice are you receiving and considering at the time?
I'm so glad you asked that, because it's very important in the inception phase to look to mentor organizations. Vessels International exists only because of our advisors. We have advisors from several nonprofit organizations and from service-based occupations. We have a section on the site that's still in development phase, but it's called Friends of Vessels, and our hope is that we will be able to list those mentor organizations and links to those sites as well, because they are so important to the development of Vessels International. One of them is Step Up. It's an association for Rwandan women, and another is Foundation for Higher Good, and both of those are Columbia-based. And we feel the network of Columbia-based organizations, another one, Rotary International, it seems such a large organization that it's almost out of reach, but really it's not. We have actually I believe 6 now, clubs here in Columbia, Rotary International clubs, and I'm also a Rotarian. And let me tell you, those Rotarians have just influenced me in such wonderful ways. And doing the work of Rotary and working in community service has definitely taught me much and has benefited the organization in the infrastructure and also the policy making, in learning which grants are the best ones to approach and so on, even how to structure projects. We've looked to other organizations every single step of the way. We find our advisors to be very accessible and generous every step of the way, and we list them as an advisory board under the About Us section.
I just thinking of all of the places that you've mentioned the community garden in Uganda, the Step Up organization in Rwanda, working in the Middle East and being inspired in India, and it truly is global.